This chapter for me was one of the best that I've read so far in the series, and mainly because it offered up so much in terms of an explanation about this world itself.
Toriko, Gourmet number 60, the final dish.
Oh, so much going on in this chapter, boy. Woohoo, what a good one. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim here to bring you another review on the gourmet food-packed, awesomely tale-filled tale story of Toriko. Honestly, I'm just kind of trying to wrap my mind around everything that happened in this chapter. The last chapter, of course, saw us at the end, this weird four-armed looking dude with this straw sucking up a bunch of the BB corn, and then at the end, going to suck up Terry as well. So, and we know Toriko is not going to have none of that shit. So that's where the chapter left off, and that's where this chapter picks up. I also forgot to mention in the last chapter that the BB corn is actually going to be the hors d'oeuvre or appetizer in Toriko's full course meal that he's going to have, his life full course meal, and which we know obviously the rainbow fruit is the dessert in that, and that's all he has filled in so far, but that is obviously significant, and I forgot to mention it in the last chapter review. Sorry. So this chapter picks up obviously right where it left off, and this character we're still not really introduced to, but we wind up finding out, like, first of all, he goes and he's trying to suck Terry up into his little magical straw, and Toriko ain't having that shit, so Toriko's like, knife! And he goes to cut this thing, and it just bends it and kind of stops the air from flowing into it, so Terry does not get sucked up into it, but it doesn't actually cut it. We wind up finding out, too, that this particular fellow over here that just likes to sort of suck up food and whatnot and eat it, we wind up finding out that this is actually the proboscis of a devil mosquito. And I thought that was kind of cool, that what looks like a straw is actually, it's very durable, flexible, and everything else. And then he kind of makes fun of Toriko, and he says, is that all your knife has to offer, And Toriko's like, yeah, what's your deal anyway, man? You don't eat another man's corn. I just thought that was funny, It's like, you don't eat another man's corn. So he's like, oh, sorry about that, hold on. And he's like, bleh. And he goes and he like regurgitates the stuff like a fly, right? That's what it reminds me of. Spits it all back up. Then he go in and it's all around by Toriko and everything. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is nasty. And then he goes and he's like, and he sucks it back up and he's like, oh, food should be enjoyed more than once. And I'm like, man, you sick mother. Oh, but whatever. Anyway, just gonna make my skin crawl a little bit. So we wind up getting a little bit of a background. This mysterious figure actually winds up spending some time talking with Toriko, and we find out that in fact when he makes fun of that whole knife thing and everything with Toriko, he reveals that obviously he works for Gourmet Corp because he winds up talking about how Starjun actually felt like he was going to have his arm cut off in that battle, obviously between the Starjun controlled GT robot, but he had turned off all the sensor buffers and everything like that, so he would feel all the hits and the pain and everything. And when Toriko was going and smashing in with the knife into that GT robot's arm, Starjun was actually feeling it and felt like his damn arm was going to rip off. So anyway, he says that, listen, he was tasked with going and cleaning up the mess, over, on Regal Isle and everything like that with the Regal Mammoth, and reclaiming the one fallen GT robot that was still somewhat intact, so they could get that out of there. However, when he got there, he was so excited because there's all these different animals and things and species he's never seen, and he's sucking them all up with this weird straw, just as a goofy character, right? And it's kind of gross too with the whole fly regurgitating thing. But anyway, then he goes and he's like, but who would have known that they would have, but then they wind up sending Star and Tommy. And I see these two guys, and one of them's like this huge, hulking, massive looking like Hulk beast with these tiny little legs and this huge upper body that like looks all big and everything. And the other guy just kind of almost looks like Wolverine, to me. He has this real cool look to him. So I don't know if Star and Tommy, because then he refers to them as the Chief and the VP. And the VP, we know, is Starjun. So I'm assuming that one of these characters, probably the Wolverine looking one, is actually Starjun without his cool looking mask on. I don't really know. All he winds up saying, though, is basically these two wound up showing up, and after the whole debacle that happened with the Regal Mammoth and everything like that, I guess, over at Gourmet Corp headquarters 6 or whatever, like pretty much most of the staff was beaten. Some people were killed, everything else. I guess the master was not happy. The leader, the president, the master chef, whoever it is, that's the guy that's in charge. And over there. So anyway, this guy winds up saying, he says, you know what, I just let them be, and they can get the GT robot about that's fine. He went around going and sucking up whatever animals he could on the island, but he didn't want to come back empty-handed, so he wound up wanting to bring back some things from there, and then just happened to take a side detour and stop to grab some BB corn on the way back. Don't exactly know how or why that just all of a sudden came up, but maybe thought that would be a good thing to bring back to into his superiors. So we get a little bit of this background, and then he goes and he explains, and Toriko says, so what is it that Gourmet Corp is after? And he's like, oh, geez, that's silly, because they're after God. He's like, what do you mean they're after God? Well, apparently there's this ultimate ingredient in the world called God, right? And several chapters ago, when we were introduced to briefly in that flashback that Acacia 500 years ago, I guess, sampled or tried every ingredient in the world, and God was like the ultimate one. That was like the pinnacle of his success, was to find this God ingredient. So it's one of those things where it's almost like the holy grail of ingredients. It is the holy grail of ingredients, and that's what the master of Gourmet Corp wants. And his hunger has been growing ever so much ever since then. But this is a cool chapter because it gives you some idea into the breadth and range of this world and what some of the ultimate end goals of this entire series are probably going to be. I don't know exactly where things are right now in chapter 200 and whatever of the series, but I do know that it is kind of cool to go and see this, and to see that he talks about, every now and again when there's when there's an eclipse, some kind of solar eclipse or what have you, that this the God ingredient or God food or whatever is on the move, or becomes known to people. I don't exactly understand how it works, but more or less there's they showed a bunch of, like, a motley crew of a bunch of different gourmet hunters. There's a ton of people that are basically getting ready and gearing up for this to happen. It's supposedly going to happen in the next couple of years. So you see a number of different characters, that they have, which are kind of cool. He's talking about some gourmet hunters coming out of retirement and everything else for this. So this is the WrestleMania of all things, I guess. And the only reason I even thought of wrestling for some reason was because that big hulking guy, that Star and Tommy, I'm assuming that's Tommy, the big guy, But it was really kind of cool to see that whole background and get a little bit of a glimpse into what's going on, obviously in the world around them, and what some of maybe the end goals of some of these bigger sagas, or maybe even the series itself, will be. So I thought it was great. The chapter wraps up shortly after that, and I thought this was funny too, because after he goes and he explains everything about that, who he's looking for, this and that, and so Toriko goes and he knows the whole background. So when this guy was talking to him, Toriko was kind of interjecting, and he was saying, yeah, and it's this and that, Acacia. He gave the whole background. He's like, oh, you know your history. And Toriko goes, yeah, because God is going to be, that's going to be on my full course menu, right? So anyway, this character goes, and at the end, he's just like, well, since obviously we're enemies. I work for Gourmet Corp, and we're both looking for this ingredient. We're both going to be searching for it. We're predestined to fight and to be enemies. He's like, so we might as well just get it out of the way while we're here right now. And then you get Toriko, and he's just like, just puts on his angry face, and he's just like, fine by me. And I thought that was cool. And he's like, Terry, get the hell out of here, get clear, the shit's about to go down. So then you get this dude, and he's like, he, Toriko, may I suck up your heart? I just like this one. He's like, fat chance, mosquito man. You can suck my knuckle sandwich. And it's so funny because when I read this, I'm sitting there reading it, and my mind's always thinking ahead. And when I read that you can suck my, I just filled in dick, because that's where my mind goes to. And then it's like, you can suck my knuckle sandwich, which isn't as good as, yeah, no, you can suck my dick. But then again, too, though, when you think about it, you wouldn't want this mosquito man going using his straw on any type of appendage of your body. Let's leave it at that. So we saw this dude while he was just sitting around talking to Toriko go and just suck up this little helpless rat, and you just saw grotesque picture after picture of this thing, like the flesh coming off it, and then it sucking into itself, and then eventually going up into the straw. So this is definitely going to be a cool fight, and we're nearing the end of the obviously the end of the volume. Excuse me. So my chapter question for you, though, is what are your thoughts on the revelations that we found, obviously, about this this God ingredient, how these gourmet hunters are kind of all getting ready for for this eclipse and to be able to actually find it. Really, just what are your thoughts on what they laid out for us, and really, to me, just kind of opened up the book and just showed us the whole world, or at least a bigger part of the world. So leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation. Remember to follow me over on the Twitter and the Facebook as well, brothers and sisters.